We're almost there. So we're going to describe now which are the different layers of protection of the central nervous system. So the first one we already know is the skull and the vertebral column that protects the brain and the spinal cord. The second layer of protections are the meninges. And the meninges are 3 layers of dense connective tissue that wraps the brain and the spinal cord. Remember, I told you every organ in our body is a gift and it comes wrapped in a specific layer of membrane. Now, this is how it looks like the membranes. This is the outermost membrane called, or meninge, called the dura mater. And here is how it looks like. Are you located in here? Let me explain really fast. In here, this is the first one is the posterior view of the skull. Here you can see all the hair, the scalp, the bone, the two cerebral hemisphere, the two cerebellar hemispheres. You can see part here of the occipital lobe and the spinal cord with the denticulate ligaments. These that it looks blood vessels, they're called, and I want you to know right now, they're called dural sinuses. We have several, the superior sagittal and blah blah blah, but in general I just want you to know they're called dural sinuses, and they act as a vein. They collect the oxygenated blood from the scalp and skull. Now, and in here, well, these, you see the eyes and the eyelashes. This is the nose. This is the ear. So this is, and here's the mouth. So this is the face. Here we have corpus callosum. This membrane is the dura mater, and in here we can see the the cerebral hemisphere part of the thalamus right here. Let's describe those membranes. So the first one is called, should have wrote this one, but we have 3 membranes. Dura, mater, arachnoid, mater, and pia mater. All of these end in mater. So the dura mater is the outermost layer, and it has is the outermost meninge, and it has 2 layers: the periosteal, because it's attached to the periosteum, and the meningeal. Okay? So layer number 1, dura mater. Let's describe it in blue. So it's this layer, the innermost layer, the meningeal layer, gets and creates like a partition within or along the longitudinal fissure and divides the cerebrum into 2 right and left cerebral hemisphere. So all of these in here is the meningeal layer of the dura mater. The one between the 2 cerebral hemispheres is called falx cerebri. The same falx cerebri continues down here and does the same, creates a partition in between the cerebellum to create the right and left cerebellar hemispheres, and is called falx falx cerebelli. And we have a third one, but this one runs in the horizontal plane. Can you see the falx cerebri and falx cerebelli runs in the sagittal plane? Then forming like a tent, we have the third one, which is called the tentorium cerebelli. And the cerebelli, okay. And the tentorium cerebelli forms or creates a tent for the cerebellum. So up here is located the cerebrum. Down here is located the cerebellum. The tentorium cerebelli divides the cerebrum from the cerebellum. Now, I'm going to zoom in. Let me go back so I delete. Okay. I'm going to zoom in like I'm taking a wedge of maybe in here. So I can see the most superficial layer in here. This is the skin. If we get to cut this let's cut to get through the brain, okay? So first we're gonna cut the skin and the subcutaneous tissue, then you're gonna cut through the periosteum of the bone, and then the bone, maybe this one is the frontal bone, and then through the two layers of the dura mater. The outermost layer, which is this one, is the periosteal layer of the dura mater, and the innermost layer is the meningeal layer. As you can see, at the beginning they are together, but then they separate because only the meningeal invaginates to create the falx cerebri. This is the falx cerebri, but also the falx cerebelli and tentorium cerebelli. That is dura mater, is the meningeal layer of dura mater. When this layer invaginates and the periosteal and meningeal layer separates, creates this space. That is where those dural sinuses are located, the ones that I described on the first slide in this video. Okay, dural sinuses, which remember are just veins collecting blood from here. Now, important that we're going to describe in the next video is these granulations, these structures that are peeking into the dural sinuses. We'll describe that later. Now, the second layer that's the dura mater. The second layer is the arachnoid, which is this in red. Okay, this is the arachnoid, and it follows all. Can you see? It goes towards the dural sinus in some parts, and then it keeps, going along the surface of the brain. And the innermost layer is the pia mater, the one attached to the surface, that clings to the surface of the brain and goes within every single sulcus of the brain. Now, in between the three layers of the three meninges, we have dura mater, arachnoid, dura mater in black, arachnoid in red, and pia mater in bluish. So in between these layers, we have two spaces, 1 and 2. That subdural space, subdural under the dura mater. So this is the subdural space that we call it a potential space because it actually doesn't exist. But if there is bleeding or inflammation, accumulation of fluids, it can create a space in there. And if we have accumulation of fluid or blood in here, it can push and compress the brain tissue. The second space that you can see here is called subarachnoid because it's right under the arachnoid. And it's called arachnoid because, as you can see, it looks like a spider web. Okay? So, two spaces, three membranes, meninges of the brain. Let's see the same meninges, but now in the on the spinal cord. We have the same dura mater, the outermost layer. We can see it in here, and we can see it in this transverse section right here. Then the second layer is in red, I guess it was, the arachnoid. See, from superficial to deep. Then I can see here, this is the arachnoid. This layer down here, the white line. Okay, well now it's red. And the third layer, it was blue, pia mater. Okay, the one that is attaching to the surface of the spinal cord. And in here we can see this is the pia major that goes within the fissures and the posterior median sulcus as well. Now, spaces. See that the layers are the same. The same three meninges we have on the brain, same three meninges we have on the spinal cord. The only difference is that dura mater in here is just dura mater. We don't have the two layers like we described on the brain. Now, spaces. We have described two spaces on the brain, subdural and subarachnoid spaces. Guess what? We have them here too. Under the under the dura mater, in between the dura and the arachnoid, we have the subdural space. In black, we have the dura mater. In red is the arachnoid. So right in between, we have is a very thin space, as you can see. We have the subdural space. Subdural space. This one and that one. And in green, I'm going to show you the arachnoid space, which is wider between the arachnoid and the pia major. So all of this is the subarachnoid space. And as you can see, it has the little threads that make it look like a spider web. These are the denticulates ligament that we described before. Right here in the bathing or located in the subarachnoid space in the spinal cord and in the brain is where we're going to find the cerebral spinal fluid that we will describe in the next video. Okay, two spaces, the subdural and the subarachnoid. Subarachnoid space. Now, in here in the spinal cord, we have a third space that we do not have in the around the brain, and it's this one. See, and this one, since it's on top, superficial, superior to the dura mater, we call it epidural space. Okay, so we end up on the spinal cord with three spaces instead of two. We have epidural, the subdural, and the subarachnoid space. In here is subarachnoid space, the subdural space, and the epidural space. And as you can see in here, the epidural space is mostly a pad of fat, adipose tissue. There is cushioning the spinal cord, so when we move, it doesn't bump against the bone of the vertebrae where it's located. So that's what it makes completely safe to administer anesthesia in this level. And that's what we call epidural anesthesia. It can be administered in any level of the vertebral column. This is a cervical vertebrae, so we can administer epidural anesthesia in here, and it will block everything below that level. We can block only the for labor at the lumbar vertebrae and the lumbar spine, and we block the nerves below that. So what you have to do is just cross or penetrate the skin. You go in between the two vertebrae, so you flex the neck or the vertebral column to open up a little bit the space in between the spinous processes. You insert the needle in there. You just need to cross the skin, subcutaneous tissue, and you're right there in the epidural space. Honestly, the complications of these are mostly none. I don't know you have the knowledge now, go spread the word. This is a very safe procedure. Complications are almost none. To damage the spinal cord, whoa, is pretty far, number one. And you feel the dura mater is so tough that when you penetrate the dura mater, you feel a crack, like you know that you have just to go back a little bit and you will be back into the epidural space. There's no way to go all the way there to the spinal cord. It's not that easy. So no worries. So those are the meninges. See you in the next and last video. We're going to describe the cerebral spinal fluid, where it's located and who makes that fluid. Why? See you.